when everything outside can be faked, filtered, fabricated, your nervous system becomes sort of the last thing on earth that cannot lie to you. Learning to read it is not a wellness practice. It's almost a survival skill for the 21st century. I'm Stephanie Ohanessian, your host. And if you're new here, I'm the founder of Triage Coaching and Consulting, where we work with chronic stress and burnout under the lens of neuroscience and inherited patterns. Behind the scenes is my phenomenal colleague, Yoshi Barnett, who's not only an expert in all things production, but her company, Lotus Flower Journeys, is a coaching company which specializes in life's crossroads and concepts around perfectionism. So you might understand more so what the raw onion was really birthed from. We created the Raw Onion podcast to peel back the layers of life, uncover collective contagion, culture, psychology, and the neuroscience behind what we do and how we change at different stages in life. We cultivate curiosity here and love taking you along with us for this ride. So before I bring on our guest today, which we're very, very, very excited to do, I need to pose the question of how well do you really know yourself? Let's go even a little bit deeper than that. In today's world, I might need to ask you, how well do you really trust yourself? And by that, I mean, think about it, guys. We are living through the first moment in human history where we genuinely cannot trust what we see, hear, or read anymore. Deepfakes can put words into anyone's mouth. AI can generate a photograph of an event that never happened. Algorithms decide what reality looks like on your screen based not on what is true, but what will keep you scrolling. Doesn't mean it's true. And here is what nobody is talking about in these kind of conversations. While we have been losing our ability to trust the external world, we've simultaneously been losing our ability to trust the internal one. So today, we are talking about how to read those signals again, how to bring that spark back into the biggest love affair you will ever know, the one that requires unmitigated trust. And that relationship is between your brain and your body. That unspoken, often complicated relationship, because what the brain tells us is very different oftentimes than how our bodies make us feel. Trusting ourselves within the brain and body is not a wellness act of self-care, but rather an act of unfiltered love. Trusting yourself means nothing can shake you from the outside. But it's a skill that most of us have lost, to be honest, and it's time to find it again. So we're in a world where everything on the outside can be manufactured. The relationship between your brain and your body might be the most radical act of resistance available to us today. And this is why we have our special guest with us. Michele Carrión Yopps is a native New Yorker who loves to cultivate her artistic and creative core with the spiritual and meditative teachings of yoga. You're not going to believe where this conversation takes us today. And after 20 plus years as a media marketing professional on the corporate sector, Michele opted to use her business savvy and solid interpersonal skills to cross over into the healing realm that yoga provides. In addition to her accreditation in Hatha alignment yoga, she also has teaching certifications for yoga for first responders, which I think is incredibly cool, and Yoga Nidra certification with Master Polly Zink and Jean Conda Parker. In 2023, Michele created and founded the Yoga Moxi mobile app for yoga teachers and students. The app is designed to provide support, guidance, information, reminders, and all of the more sort of confidence building apparati, if that's even a word, in teaching and practice. All content is offered by experienced yoga teachers and wellness professionals on the app from a variety of lineages and backgrounds. So the Yoga Moxi app is currently a community that's growing, and it strives to be for every yoga teacher by yoga teachers. And today we'll discuss what makes yoga that bridge between the body and the brain. So Michele, so absolutely honored and thrilled to have you here with us on the Raw Onion today, the master herself. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the brain and the body and that yoga that you're bringing into a practice on so many different levels. Michele, thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Yoshi. So excited to be here. I've been listening to the Raw Onion for a little bit, love all the episodes, and I am totally honored. So thank you.
Well, it's a vibe. And Michele, Yoshi, and I were chatting before we hit record and just speaking to this sort of community that we're growing. And there's so much that goes on when we're all experiencing externally the wild sort of surreal reality that we're in today's world. Before Yoga Moxi for you, Michele, before the app, before all of it, what was your personal relationship with your body? And how did yoga change that relationship, maybe in ways that surprised you? What was your path to get to where you are today?
So, for most of my life, I was in media. I was a radio salesperson, so not on the air, except for now, but totally doing sales locally and nationally. Didn't move around a lot. Did some in New York, did some down here. And I loved what it was that I did. And I think a good part of that had to do with the relationships that I would build with my clients. That was really important. And not only building the relationships, but taking their marketing objectives and bringing them to life. That was very important to me. And towards the end, I've been gone now for about 10 years. And towards the end, it wasn't fun anymore. It was more about numbers crunching and just how much work can get piled on. And while I was helping other people in terms of my colleagues with what it was that they were doing, I wasn't taking care of things for my clients and then ultimately for myself. And I went and did a teacher training, and I did it on the weekends. So I would work 5 days a week, do teacher training on Saturday, Sunday. And I loved everything about yoga. I loved the history, the philosophy, the Sanskrit, the language of it, just everything. It was such a deep dive. And after I did the teacher training, I would go back to work, and I would be in this stressful situation Monday through Friday, numbers crunching, clients, everyone management side. And then I would teach on the weekend. And I was like, wow, this is kind of not balancing anymore. And my health started to take a turn, and I started noticing more. Um, it was really hard to get up on Monday mornings, and I would get some headaches sometimes, and I was getting like twitching in my eye. And I had a long conversation with my husband. I said, I'm making a ton of money. Like, I'm going to make the most money that I've ever made this year. But I am not happy, and I do not see this going anywhere in another 10 years. And I want to teach. And so we had to put things together and make sure that everything in the household was taken care of. And he said, go and do it. And started teaching, and started doing more certifications, and started just putting myself out there in so many different ways. And the more that I taught, the more I wanted to learn. So it was always this constant of feeding myself and then providing and sharing with others.
Let me ask you a question based on what you had mentioned. Now, this crossroads that you kind of came to, and this would be Yoshie's realm, working with crossroads in life, but that moment where you were almost tag teaming two versions of yourself. You had your one limb in the Monday through Friday role, and then another limb in what you were coming into on the weekends, but still it was a lot. Is it safe for me to say that that was a classic on the road to burnout situation at that moment?
Absolutely. I wasn't taking vacation. I wasn't taking time off. I found it was so interesting when I would teach. It was the 6th day of my week, and on Saturdays, and I had worked the entire week, but it felt very effortless in a way. And even though I was a new teacher and I had challenges, they were good challenges. It was I could be creative, I could express myself, and I wasn't confined not only to an office, but to certain corporate limitations. I was myself again. And I loved speaking with my
Mhm.
students and finding out, what did you like? What didn't you like? And kind of shaping the classes based on that. So, yes, I was definitely on the road to burnout. I didn't know how long it was going to last. And my fuse was very short when it came to work, when it came to my family members, my husband. And I think physically at some point, my body would have turned up in a different way.
So, was that, thinking back, was that physical feeling, because now we're lining up how the body and brain talks to each other, the relationship. Was it a different version of yourself that you felt? And if so, how? How did you feel different, let's say, during the week and then during the weekend when it felt a little bit more effortless, or when you were doing something that was lined up with this brain heart coherence? Did it feel different in your body?
It did. It did. At work, I was always very tense, walking on eggshells. Am I going to meet this deadline? It was just very transactional on a daily basis, and there wasn't a lot of room. I remember wanting to take, I think it was once a week on Thursday, there was a yoga class at the gym. And this was while I was doing my certification. And I would bust my chops to make sure my work was done so that I could get to that yoga class just to kind of feel a release and a sense of relief. And there were times when my manager, he would kind of frown like, why are you leaving so early? And it's like early, it's like the end of the day. Like I did everything that I was supposed to do. Nothing is going to happen until tomorrow. It's going to be okay. And I need this release. So it just, I would be very tense in the body, in the mind, how it was that I slept. And during the week, and then when I taught, it was completely different. Yeah, it was a release for sure.
Well, what I think is really interesting about this, and this is, and again, learning how to trust ourselves again, right? Learning how to, and we have to be, this doesn't happen overnight. This is about being discerning about what we're listening to. But this is such a beautiful and clean example of literally putting yourself in certain environments, right? And this would be like level one of a red flag. What you're describing is putting yourself in a certain environment, and because you have body awareness, to really be able to say, oh, this is interesting, how different, what a gift that is, to almost be, not saying burnout is a gift, but to really being forced to kind of mirror these different versions of yourself at the same time during the week, the Monday through Friday, and then this weekend version of Michele that was coming out doing something different, and how you're physically showing up differently. It feels different. And, you know, in doing research for this episode, and this is something that I'll be doing more reading on, even the heart has its own nervous system. I think it's really interesting what you're sharing here, because this is a great example of a heart-led story, saying I'm physically feeling different when I step foot in here, and when I'm stepping foot in here, I actually feel very, very different. And the heart actually has over 40,000 neurons on its own. Wow. Independent of anything else, which now neuroscientists are calling just the plain old heart brain. And the heart can sense, it can feel, it can learn and remember independently of our cranial brain. So when we're saying, okay, I feel something in my heart, it's not really a metaphor. Or when I feel something in my chest, when I walk into a room and I have a gut feeling, those kind of things, it's actually a secondary neural intelligence that's operating in your chest, which I think is really interesting to reflect on what you're sharing. The simple act of walking into different rooms is telling you and guiding you into what new chapter of life you've just entered before maybe even logically you even knew.
I wasn't aware about how many neurons were actually as part of the
Crazy,
heart.
isn't it?
That's fascinating. This
Wild.
is adding to our nerdiness again.
Yep. Absolutely.
We love the nerd things.
Nerdy
but
girlies.
It completely nerdy girlies. It completely makes sense. And to your point with the heart, while I loved what it was that I did not have the heart really, for all intents and purposes, that I wanted to continue, because I was feeling so different on the weekends. I wasn't second guessing myself. I felt very relaxed. I felt very secure. I felt very, even if I didn't have the most perfect class, because whoever has that, even if someone told me something that maybe was more a critique than it was positive, it still felt so much better than going into a space where I'm seen as a number. It's a transaction. It's, how much of a budget, how much of the share can you get? There was nothing emotional, nothing so creative about that. And I love the people that I used to work with, my colleagues. I learned a lot. Some of them are still good friends. But now, being away from it 10 years later, I see what it is that they're going through, and it's harsh. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to not only make the change, but to see that this change needed to be made before my body had an opportunity to react negatively.
Well, and it is a gift, because, what you're saying too, and again, the intention is not always to sort of poke the holes in corporate structure. I think it's important we do. That's warranted. But also to offer, and this is something that you're doing so beautifully, and I think it's very important to offer an alternative reality, right? And it's almost, and this is how it's designed, and it makes sense that we're almost designed to numb out in a corporate environment where we are a number. Even wardrobe, right? Some places we're lucky enough to dress how you want, but a lot of places there's a rule, there's a method to the madness, that no one stands out too much, that there's a task at hand. And by design, you're eliminating the feeling that your bodies might give you, that if you're walking in and there is an anxiety, there is a heart palpitation, there is lower back pain, they're in the hips. We know a lot of anxiety and rage lives in the hips. And so when all of that is sort of numbed out and you go and you just clock in, you're ignoring half of who you are. And that's set up that way. We're not supposed to be so cognizant of our own individuality when we step into a large corporate environment. We're meant to be a number. And
Correct.
it's interesting and beautiful that you had that moment where you could step into a different version of yourself and say, oh, wow, and this extreme half of me is really gone almost, right? When I step into this corporate world. And now that you are a full-fledged expert in your field, you're a business owner in the yoga space, explain to me this knowledge of learning about the body. Explain, and you had mentioned, and I know nothing of it, please educate the listeners, educate myself, the 8 limbs of yoga. So what goes into this process of feeling all of these different parts of us? Walk us through this so we don't turn
Sure.
into the gray robots without limbs.
So first, really important. I think a lot of people, when they think of yoga and they see the social media version of yoga. And it's, cute, and you wear your cute clothes
Right.
and you're doing all these fancy things. And there was a time a few years back when the studio that I teach at, I was working at the front desk, and I wanted to really work the front desk because I wanted to see, am I up for being a studio owner, etc. And I would see new students come in, and I would ask them, what brought you here if they were new? Some of them would say, my doctor told me yoga would be good for me. I need to stretch. I need to, have little hip pain. So want to work on that. And when they would tell me these things, and the best one is always, I want to be more flexible. Yoga is going to make me flexible. And there was, or there can be, this huge disconnect with what they perceive yoga practice lifestyle to be and what it actually is. So I would make a recommendation to them and say, okay, do you do any other type of activity? Play tennis, golf, go to the gym? They would tell me and say, this is where it is that I think you should begin, so that you can learn how to breathe. You can learn about how to hold your space. You can, listen to what it is that the instructor is telling you. And then once you feel a little bit better, you'll move on. And the great thing about that was there would be some students, since I did work the front desk, they would be new. They would come to the studio and I would see them. And then after a month, I would see them again.
Yeah.
And now they learned how to make that connection between their body, their breathing, their emotions, regulating their system. So now their view of yoga had changed completely. And it was like, yeah, it's not about flexibility. And I cried in class yesterday because we were doing hip openers. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty common. Hip openers, we'll do that for you. It's a release. They're like junk drawers.
Yeah.
Remind me to tell you the story about junk drawers and hips later.
Yes, yes.
And they got it. They understood now. This wasn't the physical. They had to go through the layers, right? Similar to the raw onion. They had to go through these layers in order to find, this is not about being physical. This is about connecting with myself, with the space around me, and where is it that I kind of fit in. So a lot of times they would have these epiphanies and they would tell me about them and share. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, totally, totally. It doesn't matter if you can do a perfect pose. It doesn't matter if you can do a handstand or do something on your head. That doesn't matter. The one thing, or the couple of things that matter, is that you are breathing, that you are connecting, and that you know where your body is at in time and in space, and that is being present. And that was always like, yay, I'm so excited for you.
Hi, friends. If you're enjoying this episode of The Raw Onion, here's just a quick reminder about what Michele is actually and has built and is continuing to build. So, As a reminder, and we've got a little announcement here, Michele obviously created and founded Yoga Moxi mobile app for yoga teachers and students. And the app is designed to provide support, guidance, information, reminders, and inspiration for more confidence in teaching and in the practice itself. She feels really strongly that you have to have a bit of an ear, of a guide, while you are in that process of rewiring and reworking that relationship with the body and mind. And her app is designed to do just that. All content is offered by experienced yoga and wellness professionals. And because of this, this app has built a fantastic community that is really growing wildly, wildly fast. So we at The Raw Onion are proud to announce that we are currently working on a bespoke collab with the Yoga Moxi app and are building a comprehensive program together that will be released soon. Hint, it's a program that will blend and build that version of yourself, body and mind, that you never thought possible. It's going to be incredible. So watch this space, Raw Onion, Yoga Moxi app, collab coming soon. Now, back to the show. Well, and please educate us a little on that, because
Yes.
last week, and this is something I really nerded out on, and I know you'll appreciate it, and it's this concept of, to your point, getting to know your body enough to where you are really there in the moment in time and space, right? Which is easier said than done, at least in my experience. But what I had really thought was wildly interesting is 80% of our sort of pathways, how we connect and talk to different parts of our bodies, right? 80% of the information that we're getting from the outside starts in the gut, the body brain and I know I'm sharing that with someone who obviously knows this, but just to kind of build this foundation a little deeper for our listeners, to Michele's point of really this practice of learning how to be aware of yourself in this space and time is much deeper than just a body awareness. It's literally a filtering system where you're learning how to control the information that you're receiving. And if 80% of what you're getting from the external world is starting in the gut and the body and then going up into the brain, where the brain can then assess it for whatever it needs to assess it for, fight or flight, is this dangerous, is it not, am I safe, whatever, how are we going to approach it? It all starts from the body. And so, or 80% of it, I should say. So going back to what you're explaining here, it's really almost overwhelming to think this practice is so profound and it's so ancient. Of, in your opinion, as an expert in this, understanding that we're not just training our bodies to be present in the here and now, we're also training our bodies as almost, I don't even know the right word, but a chamber in which to filter what we're going to listen to, what we're not going to, what we're going to hear, what we're not going to hear, what we're going to feel or not going to feel. What is your experience in these first few steps, in the first few phases of this body awareness training that people go through? Is there resistance? Do people understand how profound this is, what they're actually learning? What is this like for them? And what's it like for you as the guide?
Wow, so much there. So you had mentioned the 8 limbs of yoga.
Yeah.
And the one limb that people are most they associate yoga with. This is the third one, and it's asana. And asana is the physical movement. And the 8 limbs are guidelines, and they take you through this journey of breathing, of self-awareness, where if you follow the steps, your body will release, your mind will become quiet, your breathing will help you regulate. And at some point, you turn inward. And at some point, the 8 limb is when you have or when you look to achieve that connection to the divine, right? And this is like an entirely bigger conversation. But the third one is the one that everyone most associates with. And going back to your point, when I see students for the first time, and this is more like when they come from a different studio, they come from a different space, and I see how it is that they make the connection. Inhale, raise your hands up to the sky. Exhale, fold. When you inhale, you are taught as a teacher that you are helping your students create space. And then on an exhale, you are going deeper into the pose. So deeper doesn't mean that it is standing on your head. Deeper can mean going into that space where maybe you find some resistance, maybe there is some challenge. And how are you going to react to that challenge while you are working yourself into this pose? So as you're breathing, the breathing helps bring you safely into the pose. If you have a challenge, this is where the work begins. And then the breathing again helps you come safely out of the pose. And one of the biggest, I haven't seen it in a while, but I used to see it a lot in the beginning. And I had seen yoga students who they would have beautiful practices, strong practices, right? They're flexible, they move, they seemed happy, they knew what to do. And then the last part of a practice is final meditation. And in final meditation, it's called Shavasana. Final meditation, this is where you almost give your body, you did all this movement, you give it a chance for recovery, right? You give it a chance to kind of settle into stillness and to regulate. And there are different ways to get into Shavasana, but the most common way is on your back. The room is a little bit dark. It's not there's you can have music on, you don't have to have music on. And when you start to guide students into, okay, this is a safe place for you, your body, your mind to rest, first part is soften your gaze or close your eyes. And I would walk around the room to help students get more comfortable, to help them slip into this final meditation. And some students, their eyes are wide open.
Why do you think that is?
Because they can't make the connection yet. They do not know. They did this entire practice, this physical practice, okay? Depending on, if it's really demanding, hot yoga, all kinds of things. And they have not learned or given themselves permission, okay, that it is okay that they're in a safe space. They're still in a safe space, and that it is okay to release.
So there's still, would it be fair? I don't mean to cut you off, but is it fair to say they are, regardless at this stage in the training, they're just in chronic fight or flight?
Yes, they are still hypervigilant. They still have the monkey mind going on in their brain. They're doing the breathing, they're doing everything, but there is something that is not allowing them to release. And I don't want to say relax, because every time I hear the word relax, I never relax. I go to the doctor's office, the doctor's like, relax. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that's
not happening.
But
release is a very different thing.
It is very different. And at that point, if I see a student, and sometimes you see it not only that they keep their eyes open, but physically, because part of getting into that final meditation, I will guide students and say, allow your muscles to become heavy. Allow your entire body to sink deeper, supported by the space beneath you. And to ground, you're coming back to a grounded state. And sometimes eyes are open and the shoulders are still tense, or the low back has not come down. So they have that little arch in their low back, or their feet are very, toes are up to the sky instead of kind of coming out, and the arches move away from one another. And it's so difficult. And I've heard where that pose, Shavasana, is the hardest pose in yoga because of that. And if someone can get to that state, your body is feeling good, you're breathing, you went through the challenges of a practice, whatever those challenges or restrictions are, and you get to that space, that is your dessert. That is your personal reward. And it's can be a little challenging to have students see that for what it is.
I mean, it's so interesting what you're saying, because I feel like us as human beings, this is how we operate and move in the world all the time. We think we are showing up one way, we're present, we're putting in the quote unquote work, but the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, right? And so if you have somebody to observe, and in this situation it's an instructor observing someone who is really mindfully trying to unclench their body, to relax, and I say relax mindfully, defining it as you had just done so eloquently, but the body and that brain, right? We're talking, two different channels are on at the same time. And we're not aware of it. We have no idea that we're really kind of running two different programs. And let me get your opinion on something. I'm going to talk about this researcher, and I would love your insight on this. So, guys, there's this neuroscientist, Joseph LeDoux. He was at NYU for many years, and his concept is about the high road and the low road of the brain and the body. And for all intents and purposes, the low road is operating constantly, literally making decisions between, I think it's something like 30 milliseconds and 120, like faster than a blink of an eye. So it's not even thinking, it's just doing. That's low road operation. We all have this. As opposed to high road, where something happens and your brain then the stimuli goes in and it goes down a different path. And so you have two different paths, high road and low road, and this high road is going through the cortex, picking up nuance on the issue, the situation. Do we have to run? Are we okay? So let's say, for example, you come across a long stick. Your low road has already decided that this is a snake, you better run, oh my God, you're going to die. Your high road, you've already made the choice that it's dangerous before your other part of your facilities have been able to say, wait a minute, nuance, this is not a snake, it's a stick, we're okay. So we are always operating on low road activation as a human being. Now the trick is, and this isn't a good thing, because now we're operating on instinct all the time, or inherited stress, or all of these different sort of unrealized operations that we're doing, right? The goal, according to LeDoux, is to make this low road instinct your master. You are to really master the low road. And that's almost what I'm hearing you describe here, is that low road instinct with someone with their eyes still wide open. They're doing the work. Their high road is assessing that they're fine to lie there. They're still safe. They're okay. The nuance has entered the chat. But that low road instinct, that reptilian part of that person, is still not feeling safe because the eyes, they don't trust themselves to close their eyes. And so this theory on LeDoux and what his work really was is, how do we train our low road instinct to match that high road? How do we train those milliseconds to say, essentially, I'm regulated all the time. I'm safe until I can logically tell myself otherwise. And that is what this yoga practice, ideally, that's what sort of I'm hearing. How do we train that offline instinct to discern between what's real and what's not? And I'd love to hear your opinion and your expertise on when you're training someone to be in their bodies. Do you agree or disagree with this high road, low road sort of instinct versus nuance thinking?
This is the first time that I hear about it, so I'm glad that another nerdy girly thing, right?
Totally, yeah. I'm just getting into it.
And I am now, and you and I had spoken about this also, learning about the vagus nerve, right?
Mhm.
And how it is that it functions. And even the research on that is still pretty new
Yeah.
compared to other things. And one of the things that before we got on air, it was actually this morning I was thinking about while I was driving. I had said to myself, Michele, you've been meditating a little bit more at night, because I have time at night, and just sitting in gratitude, and gratitude for big things, medium things, little things, for the good things that happen and maybe the challenges that happen too. And when I'm in that state, I am not so much in my head with this monkey mind thinking about 10 different things at once. I am so focused on just talking to myself in a healthy way, I don't want to say positive, I want to say in a healthy way. And trying to eliminate that monkey mind. When I am in a low road state, I would think that I second guess myself all the time.
Ooh. Wait a minute. Would it be safe to say so is that when low road would kind of bring in an imposter syndrome situation?
Possibly, because you're thinking about so many things, right? You have so many tasks on your plate, possibly, that you just want to get rid of the tasks. You're not
That's so
really
true.
thinking about them, and you just kind of want to, get this done, make sure that it's done okay, that
Yeah.
it's not, half-ass or anything, and just keep it
Yeah.
moving, right? That's how busy our lives are. But when you really take the time, and it takes a while, because I've been a yoga teacher for a while and I'm still learning this process. When you start to make that mind body emotional connection, when you start to learn how to quiet, not turn off, quiet that monkey mind, when you open yourself up to sitting in nature or taking a part on a walk, even with your dog, for 10 minutes out of the day, and you start to do those things, then the second guessing is gone. Then you know exactly what it is that it may not be perfect. You know what it is. You do not second guess yourself, and you do it with focus, and you do it with integrity would be, I don't think it would be a misplaced word, but you do it, you validate yourself. You're like, okay, this is it. Good, bad, indifferent. I'm not second guessing, and boom. And you're okay with it. And that comes with not being burnt out. You've spoken about this on your show so much. It comes with learning how to breathe well. It comes with, now you're working with your body, with your mind. You're not working against it. You're not burning out. You're not crashing. You start to get into this flow state.
Talk to me more about this flow state and really optimizing breath, because I think that's something that is thrown around a lot. You know, we hear about box breathing, take a deep breath. I've shared breathing. I mean, it's a huge thing. I'm not knocking it at all. It's critical. You cannot do this work without breathing correctly. But there's a method to that madness, right? What are we doing what's the intention? It's not just so we don't pass out, right? We're breathing. Why? Tell us why, and go a little bit into detail about why that is so vital with this body brain coherence when we're trying to trust ourselves and learn to trust ourselves.
So we know, you've spoken about this on the show with the neuroscience. You have your parasympathetic nervous system and you have your sympathetic nervous system. And your nervous system is pretty much what controls everything that goes on, right? And when you are in that fight, flight, freeze, that's your sympathetic nervous system. And you're second guessing, you have a monkey mind, you are not making the connection. You're breathing, right? Because that's what we do on a regular basis, but you're not being mindful. You are not being mindful. It's just automatic. And when things are automatic, then the body kicks in automatically also, right?
Yeah.
And then when you take the time, and it doesn't have to be a long period of time. When I was working at my job, I would literally go into the restroom and take 2 minutes to start deep breathing before I went back out to face a challenge. And when you take as little as 2 minutes to just breathe, concentrate on your inhalations and your exhalations, then the body kicks in. Then the mind starts to quiet. Now you're in more of that regulated rest, digest state, and not in the monkey mind second guessing, I need to do this really quick. There's no connection at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what a good part of yoga teaches us, is that if you want to quiet your mind, you need to breathe. And there's so many. You mentioned box breathing, there's ocean breathing, the different types of counts with 8-5-3 for inhales and exhales. But when you start to really focus on that, it's like a domino effect. Everything else, the body will start to fall into line as well, as opposed to the other way around.
Would you venture to say that, and we talked a bit here about the corporate dilemma, right? How it's a space designed to numb ourselves as opposed to bringing everything online. So we're working optimally every day, which is sort of that ironic realm that so many of us need to exist in to keep a roof over our head, right? We have to show up every day and work optimally. Would you venture to say that breathing would be your number one suggestion on the place to start when you're feeling like your brain and body are not talking to each other, is to escape for a minute or two and start there?
100%. 100%. Yeah. Because there's a reason why people say, maybe you should sleep on it. Right?
Oh.
Or maybe you maybe count back from 10
Yeah.
before you make a decision. And you are more likely to not focus and concentrate and possibly do something that maybe it was just to get it out of the way or get that thing off the
Mhm.
plate versus something that is mindful with intention and with purpose. And that can take place in a split second, but you have to have that prep done first.
So having the prep done, how long, and what I think is so fascinating too is hearing you and being guided and educated by you today. It's such a gift because what I'm learning too is fundamentally human beings, the environment that's changed over millennia, right? But yoga being an ancient thousands of years old practice, it kind of tells us that we haven't really changed all that much as human beings, that the need for this body mind coherence has always and will always be there. And what really happens when you master that, if it was 5,000 years ago or today, as you and I sit and chat, the needs of our physical and mental wellness have not changed. And science is now just catching up to what our ancestors knew all of those years ago. As an instructor and an expert in this field, does that kind of blow your mind or does it not surprise you?
Both.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Because the more I learn, like I mentioned, I'm learning more about the vagus nerve now and its importance in the body and how it is a conductor of this fight and flight and its job in doing that. And so it's all there and kind of scratching the surface of it. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is totally what people beforehand would do, hopefully, right? Things were more organic, and it's not to take away from anything that is Western, not Western
Right.
medicine. No, there's a place and a time for everything.
I agree.
But there's so much in nature that in terms of medicine, in terms of healing, in terms of connection, in terms of this synchronicity
Yeah.
that we have with nature, but we have to learn how to connect with that again. So this practice, this yoga, really kind of, it gets you to that starting point. And then once you start, it doesn't take away if you want to continue doing tennis or, swimming or whatever else it is that you want to do. Absolutely. But this will support and add to whatever it is, and it'll keep you authentic. It'll keep you creative. It'll keep you just wanting to learn more about how fascinating the body is and how
Yeah.
we can work better with it.
Do you want to hear something really crazy? And part of my story, and I've shared it a little bit here on the podcast, but during my season where I was so incredibly burned out, I ended up in the hospital. And it makes sense looking back now that my capacity to operate had slowed down significantly. I was so chronically tired that, yeah, I could still autopilot perform my job, right? But to take in new information, and I had shared, and you're the right person to bring it up with briefly again, that my body froze, right? I had no body left. It was literally, it had atrophied. Everything had turned into solid rock. And the doctor had mentioned that when burnout and stress get so bad, and when people do not listen to their bodies, the gray matter in their brain actually starts to shrink and almost kind of evaporate. And for anyone who doesn't know what gray matter is, not that anyone should know, but let me just explain. Gray matter is a part of the insula, and it's a region in the brain responsible for awareness, and it reduces the amygdala reactivity to stress. So if people are hyper aware, to your point, in fight or flight all the time, not listening and not hearing their connection to the body brain, if their body's a little numb, if they are burned out, that gray matter literally almost sort of starts to die. And that region that's responsible for that reactivity to stress, that red light, that red flag that the amygdala kind of is responsible for, that starts to diminish. And so your entire awareness of what is dangerous, what's not, what's safe, what's not, everything starts to kind of die with it. So your body starts to get more confused. It doesn't know anymore what to listen to. Everything, because this gray matter is kind of dying on you. And the point that I want to bring home is that it's now proven, and this is absolutely remarkable, but not surprising after speaking to you, that long-term yoga actually shows measurable difference when practiced regularly, that it increases the gray matter. And yoga and the practice of yoga starts to rebuild that gray matter in the brain that is responsible for stress mitigation, which is proof absolutely to what you're saying, that ignoring will literally cause part of your gray matter to die. And looking at it from a holistic point of view, just to say, I feel my body again, I'm here learning how to be present again in this space, in time, in my physical being, it actually starts to grow the gray matter back in your brain, which I think is what more proof do you need?
I was not aware about this gray matter. You always teach me something, right? So 2 things I learned today with the heart and the neurons, and now the brain matter. It completely makes sense. I'm going to add on to that, okay?
Please.
In terms of, we are learning now more about the gray matter in the brain can disappear, right? Now there's a connection also when it comes to fascia in the body. Okay. So myofascial release. We've heard of this yoga. You get the foam rollers, and that's supposed to loosen up. And we're learning fascia is all over the body, and it is a mesh, and it think of each organ that you have, and it is encompassed with this mesh, similar to like if you opened up a tangerine and you peeled back the skin, and the webbing around the
Or an
flesh,
onion.
or an onion, yes. yes, and what holds the flesh, that would be fascia, right? So we're learning that fascia, when you're younger, you run, you jump, it's fluid, it's working. And as you get older, if we don't move, it becomes tight, it becomes brittle, it can break. And in addition, fascia holds emotions.
What?
Yeah. So if you are in a lifetime of not caring for your body, and it's little steps, things that we can do every day, with the breathing, with being, taking time for yourself, 10 minutes, doing the yoga, doing the exercise, etc., etc. It holds emotion, and that can lead later on to inflammation, and then lead to disease. So something that we don't know so much about this fascia, and you can tell where your fascia is at, right? Because if you ever use the foam roller and you used it underneath your feet, right? And usually in the arch of the feet, if you roll over and you're like, ah, and your eyeballs open up like you just saw stars, okay, that's your fascia. And it's usually gets tight in the spaces in the body that you're not moving, that you're not opening, that you're not taking care of. So it's important. So yes, brain matter, heart, the gut, the second brain, fascia, it is all connected. And the body tells us this story. The mind tells us this story. We have to tap into it and hear what the story is so that we can care for it and hopefully live a healthier life, a more connected life.
All right. So what I think is really wild, Michele, and thank you for bringing this up, because before I started my practice, everyone was making fun of me. Inherited stress patterns. Epigenetically speaking, what are you talking about? That's not true. There's no way I inherited my great grandmother's reaction to stress. No, actually, let's sit down and talk about it. It's true. And now it's starting to revolutionize how we handle stress and burnout. And in this vein, with the fascia, again, where does memory live? Where does joy? Where does rage live?
Lives right
And
beneath
it's not up here, is it?
Not all the time. Not all the time. We can definitely hold it in our bodies. I had mentioned to you the junk drawers, and
Yes.
so there's. I always say this story when teaching yoga class, and we're opening up hips. Okay, so hips can be, if you do a class in yoga, it is common that if you do a lot of hip openers, especially for women, that people get emotional and they don't know why. And it's not a sad emotional, it's a release. And the reason why is because in yoga, your hips and your body, your hips hold stress, they hold tension, right? For women, that is where our sacral organs exist. If you were to think about the chakras, right, which are the energy points within the body, your second chakra lives in your hips, in that area. So if we as women hold stress, when you do hip openers and you release it, you can move forward. It's the same as if the analogy is, if you have that one junk drawer in your house, it's messy, it has all kinds of things in it, and then you decide that one weekend you're going to clean it out. You clean it out, you find things, you put some nice paper in it, you organize it. You feel so good, like you've done something so great. You can move forward. So if you release the stress and tension in your hips, you might get emotional because you are ready to move forward. The body tells the story. Yeah.
You've literally opened up the coolest can of worms here. And folks, as we start to kind of wrap up, talking here with Michele, this is one out of many. We've got a lot of exciting information coming that we're going to share with you in the coming weeks. But, in a world that's really hard to tell you what to think, what to do, what to feel, we don't know anymore what's real. Your brain and your body, that conversation with each other, what you've shared with us today, Michele, there's no other relationship that matters if we don't master the brain and the body, because every ounce of what we're dealing with on one half is relative to exactly what we're dealing with on the other. And it's the oldest, it's the wisest, the most loyal relationship we'll ever have. And it's almost like it's been waiting for us to come home to it our entire life. And that's exactly what you're helping us facilitate. So as we wrap up today on the Raw Onion, Michele, leave us with one hack that you would love to share with everyone that really gets that relationship out to dinner, I guess.
Breathing doesn't have to be fancy. You sit in a quiet space or someplace, in the morning, can even be in the restroom, and
Yeah.
feet on the floor. You can keep your eyes open and just think about inhaling and exhaling. And if you can inhale and count up to the number 4 and pause, and then exhale down to 4, 5, 6 or longer, and just keep that rhythm going, you will notice after a minute, 60 seconds or 2 minutes, how the body starts to ground and how it starts to release, and you would have completed your first session of meditation.
You guys, we can all do this.
Mhm. And your
We
body
can
will
all.
thank you for it. You will focus, you will move better, you'll think better, you'll breathe better, you'll interact better, and that's where it starts, with the breathing.
And we'll be back with Michele with more on this conversation later. But for now, Michele, you've totally blown our minds. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Yoshi. You ladies are amazing. Love, love, love the raw onion.
Well, and we appreciate people that get it, like you, that are adding to the conversation, that are building the community. These are things literally never heard before. So thank you for opening that door for us. You're
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yay. Thank you.
Folks, we'll be back next week. Until then, just try to breathe this week. Let's talk about it next week. This is the Raw Onion, over and out. Thank you so much.